Before language, before writing, before civilization took form, there was rhythm. A heartbeat in the chest, a stick hitting stone, the sound of wind through grass. Long before humans understood what emotion was, we understood its sound. Imagine the first human who ever sat beside a fire and tapped a pattern into the earth, only to feel something inside them shift. A sense of connection, expression, belonging. In that moment, music was born, not as entertainment, but as a doorway into the mind. And here you are, thousands of generations later, still moved by melodies, still shaped by rhythm, still carried by harmony. As we begin this journey, take a slow breath if you wish. Let the sound of your own breath become the first quiet rhythm of this story. Music is one of the oldest forces woven into human life. Older than agriculture, older than written language, older than the stories carved into cave walls. It is a biological instinct, a psychological language, a social technology, and a philosophical mystery. It is the vibration of emotion, the architecture of memory, the geometry of feeling, and the ancient pulse of being alive. Tonight, we travel across time, across continents, across cultures, across the landscapes of the brain, across the emotional universe living inside each of us. We explore the origins of rhythm in the natural world, the birth of melody in early human communication, the way sound shaped the developing brain, and how harmony came to carry the weight of meaning, memory, and emotion. We explore how different societies found themselves through sound, how music healed the wounded mind long before medicine existed, and how rhythm bound early humans into families, tribes, and eventually civilizations. Along the way, you may notice moments when your shoulders soften or your breath becomes gentler. This is natural. Music and the mind have always moved together. As you listen, feel free to let your mind wander, drift, or sink deeper into the atmosphere of this story. Let sound, silence, and imagination create the landscape. Tonight, think of this journey as both a documentary and a meditation. A cinematic exploration of music as the pulse of human evolution, the language of emotion, and the quiet companion that has followed humanity through every age of history. So before we go further, let your attention settle gently. Feel the soft rhythm of breathing. Feel the quiet space around you. Feel the subtle stillness in the body, like the calm before a drumbeat. Because this is where our story begins, with the first rhythm, the first pulse, the first sound that ever shaped the human mind. Let us step into the ancient world where music was not something humans created, but something humans discovered waiting for us in the heartbeat, the wind, the fire, and the earth beneath our feet, the first rhythm. And so, as the quiet of the body settles, we return to that earliest pulse, the beginning of everything, the first rhythm. Before the mind understood ideas, it understood movement. Before it understood words, it understood patterns. And before any human made a sound with intention, there was a heartbeat, relentless, steady, ancient. The first soundtrack of the human experience. Every one of us once lived in a world made entirely of rhythm. Inside the womb, long before we opened our eyes, we floated in a warm, dark ocean, filled with the sound of a mother's heartbeat, a deep, steady drum. Lub-dub, lub-dub, lub-dub. It was constant, reliable, comforting, the pulse that meant life, the pulse that every human carried into the world. Even now, when you hear a slow, steady drum, some quiet part of the mind remembers that place. A biological memory without words, a memory older than thought. Outside the womb, nature extended the rhythm. The crash of waves on a shore repeating without end. The cycle of wind rising and falling through tall grass. The crackle of fire shifting in irregular hypnotic patterns. Rain tapping on leaves, dripping in gentle cascades. Footsteps across dirt, echoing in predictable intervals. These were the first musical teachers. The earth itself playing a symphony long before humans tried to understand it. Early hominins did not simply hear rhythm. They felt it. In the bones, in the chest, in the timing of breath and movement, in the coordination required to hunt, gather, and survive. Imagine them moving through a prehistoric forest, their steps falling into an unconscious pattern. Imagine the sound of tools being struck together, each impact creating a natural tempo. Imagine the earliest families sitting around a fire, the crackling sparks forming an accidental rhythm that filled the silence between them. In those moments, rhythm did not entertain. It united. It synchronized bodies and minds. It created the first shared experiences. Some anthropologists believe that before language existed, rhythm was how early humans communicated unity. Movement in sync meant trust. A group walking together to the same beat moved as one organism, not many. Synchrony made them safer, closer, more attuned. Even today, when people walk side by side, their steps begin to match without conscious effort. When groups chant together, their breathing aligns. When crowds clap, they find the same tempo. The ancient instinct lives on. And perhaps the most captivating scene of all the moment, one of our ancestors first tapped a stick against a hollow log. Not for hunting, not for signaling danger, but simply to feel the pulse echo back. A simple pattern. 3 taps. A pause. 3 taps again. That pause carried meaning, anticipation, emotion, wonder. The pattern stirred something inside them, something warm, something human, the beginnings of expression. The rhythm answered a question they didn't yet know they were asking. What happens when the world outside begins to echo the world inside? It is possible that in this moment, the first spark of music flickered alive. As you picture this, you might notice your own breath finding a gentle cadence. In, out, in, out. The timeless rhythm, always present, always waiting beneath thought. And it is from this ancient pulse that the next great chapter of our story emerges. A chapter where sound becomes meaning, where rhythm becomes communication, and where music begins shaping the very architecture of the human mind. For as soon as rhythm found its way into human life, another question arose. If the world can move in patterns, can emotion move in sound? And with this question, humanity stepped into a new frontier. Music before language. The fire crackles softly in your imagination, its rhythm settling into the night, and from that ancient pulse, something new begins to rise. A shift in the way early humans listened. A shift in the way they expressed the world inside them. Rhythm had given them coordination, unity, and safety. But the mind wanted more. It wanted to shape feeling into sound. Long before humans formed words, we formed tones. Long before we built sentences, we built contours of emotion rising, falling, softening, trembling. Music was not an invention. It was an instinct. Early human communication was not speech as we know it today. It was breathy exhalations, melodic cries, tonal signals, and emotional waves carried through pitch. It was a language of feeling long before it became a language of thought. Imagine the first mother soothing her infant, humming without realizing she was creating the earliest lullaby. The melody didn't come from culture. It came from biology. The rising and falling pitch mirrored the natural shape of calm breathing, the same slow rhythm we still use today to ease anxiety and settle the nervous system. That hum may have been the first intentional comfort a human ever created with sound. Pitch became emotion long before meaning became words. A low rising call for reassurance, a high alert tone for danger, a descending sigh when exhaustion filled the body, a soft rhythmic murmur when comfort was needed. These were the seeds of language. Emotion carried through vibration. As early human groups grew, rhythm and tone fused into something more complex, a kind of musical proto-language. Before grammar existed, there was cadence. Before vocabulary, there was melody. The human voice was becoming an instrument capable of expressing inner states, intentions, safety, warning, invitation, affection. Anthropologists believe the earliest humans communicated more like singing animals than talking ones. Wolves howl in unison to bond their pack. Birds use intricate melodic patterns to signal identity. Whales sing across the depths to navigate and connect. Humans, too, once lived in a world where emotion was carried not through structured sentences, but through patterns of tone. Picture a small band of early humans gathering food. One member hums a gentle descending pattern to reassure a child. Another makes a repetitive clicking rhythm to keep the group coordinated. Someone else calls out with a melodic upward sound to signal the discovery of water. These were not words. They were musical signals, shaped by instinct and refined by need. Over time, these musical expressions grew richer, more layered. Tone became intention. Rhythm became structure. Melody became memory. Groups began using repeated patterns to communicate stability and trust. Sound became a tool to bind the group emotionally, not just logistically. The human voice was evolving into the most versatile instrument on earth. Music did something speech alone could not yet do. It carried the full weight of emotion. It held softness, longing, warmth, fear, hope, and connection in a single breath. It reached minds before minds could reason. It reached hearts before hearts had language. Some researchers believe music may have shaped speech itself, that our ancestors began speaking by adding structure to their musical calls. In this view, language did not replace music. Language grew out of music. Even today, you can hear echoes of this ancient origin. We raise our pitch when asking questions. We soften our tone when comforting others. We speak in rhythmic patterns when we are excited. We shift melody when expressing emotion. We are all still singing in our speech. All of us. Every day. As societies evolved, musical communication became a kind of emotional glue. It soothed infants, strengthened partnerships, aligned groups, taught young children how to interpret emotion. It created bonds that were vital for survival, bonds that shaped the human species. And as the human mind grew more complex, so did the brain's response to these musical patterns. Neural circuits began forming pathways that connected sound to feeling, prediction to pleasure, memory to meaning. Rhythm was shaping the brain. Melody was shaping emotion. Sound was shaping consciousness. The story of music was no longer just biological. It was becoming neurological. And as the emotional language of tone evolved into a more structured system, another transformation began. Music moved from instinct to interpretation, from survival to expression, from raw communication to inner experience. Now, the mind was not only shaped by music, it was beginning to shape music in return. This is where the next chapter of our journey emerges, smoothly and naturally into the depths of the human brain, where sound becomes sensation, prediction becomes pleasure, and music becomes the architecture of emotion. The brain on music. From those early melodic calls drifting through pre-human forests, the story carries us inward now, into the landscape of the mind itself. The transition is gentle, like following a familiar melody that draws you toward its next phrase. Rhythm shaped our steps, tone shaped our communication, and with every pattern the world offered, the brain began learning, evolving, and rewiring itself in response. Music did not simply live around us. It began to live within us. To understand why music moves us so deeply, we must enter the intricate system of neural circuits that interpret sound. The moment a tone reaches the ear, something remarkable happens. Vibrations in the air, invisible, weightless, intangible, touch the eardrum and create a cascade of electrical impulses. These impulses surge into the auditory cortex, which begins to decode pitch, rhythm, timbre, and contour. But the journey does not end there. In fact, that is only the beginning. Music travels across the brain like light moving through a prism. Sound enters. Emotion emerges. As the auditory cortex analyzes the structure of the sound, the limbic system responds to its emotional content. The amygdala senses the tone of fear or safety. The hippocampus binds the sound to memory. The nucleus accumbens releases dopamine when a musical pattern resolves in just the right way. This reward system lights up in anticipation, not just in response, creating one of the most fascinating phenomena in neuroscience musical prediction. Your brain is constantly guessing what comes next. Every note, every beat, every rise and fall. When the mind predicts correctly, it rewards itself. When a song surprises you in just the right way, the reward is even greater. This is why a perfectly timed chord change can feel almost physical. Why a building melody can make you breathe deeper. Why a sudden silence in a piece of music can feel like the world holding its breath. Music is a dance between predictability and surprise. The brain needs both. Too much predictability, and the song becomes dull. Too much unpredictability, and the song becomes chaotic. The magic lies in the balance. And when that balance is perfect, something extraordinary happens. The chills, the shivers, goosebumps racing up the arms, a sudden, involuntary wave of emotion. This reaction is rare in human experience. Very few stimuli can trigger such a response. Music is one of them. And it happens because music activates pathways associated with motivation, reward, and deep emotion, the same circuits tied to survival. Think about that for a moment. Sound vibrations in the air can trigger survival circuitry. That is how ancient music is to the brain. Different elements of music recruit different neural systems. Rhythm activates motor areas, even when you are not moving. The body prepares to synchronize, remembering the ancient instinct to move as one with others. Melody engages emotional pathways, shaping the feeling of the moment. Harmony creates sensations of tension and release, building emotional landscapes inside the mind. Timbre. The tone color of an instrument or voice creates texture and identity, giving sound a sense of character. Music is one of the only experiences that activates nearly every known brain region. Hearing, movement, memory, emotion, attention, imagination all come alive at once. This whole brain activation makes music feel immersive. It makes it feel alive. And the brain, ever adaptable, reshapes itself through repeated exposure to sound. Musicians develop stronger connections between hemispheres. Children exposed to rhythm learn language more quickly. Adults who engage with music show increased neuroplasticity, emotional regulation, and cognitive flexibility. Even now, as you listen to this story, your brain is pulsing with patterns of anticipation, constructing meaning from sound. There is a rhythm in the way you absorb the words, a melody in the rise and fall of sentences, a soft, emotional undertone guiding you gently through the experience. And in this moment, if you'd like, you may notice your breath once again settling into a natural cadence, a slow inhale, a gentle exhale, the mind falling into sync with the flow of the narrative. Music and storytelling share the same pathways, after all. Both are patterns of sound that organize emotion. As the brain learned to interpret rhythm and melody, the human experience changed forever. People began moving together, sensing each other more deeply, feeling emotions in unison. Sound shaped connection, sound shaped memory, sound shaped culture. But before music became culture, before it evolved into rituals and art, it shaped something more fundamental, the human body itself. Where rhythm first reached the heartbeat, it now reached the muscles, the gait, the dance of movement that led our species across continents. And so the story continues, flowing from the neural landscape into the physical one, where rhythm begins to sculpt the body, the breath, and the way humans move through the world. Rhythm and the body. The brain's circuits glow with musical intention, and from that inner electrical dance, the story moves outward naturally, seamlessly into the living body that carries those rhythms through the world. Music is not just something the mind hears, it is something the body feels. The transition is as simple as noticing how every beat the brain anticipates is also a beat the body prepares to follow. Rhythm was our earliest companion in movement. Even before humans understood emotion, we understood timing. Even before culture shaped music, movement shaped rhythm. Imagine early humans traveling across vast prehistoric landscapes. Their footsteps fall into patterns, steady and purposeful. Left, right, left, right. The rhythm becomes a binding force, aligning the movements of an entire group. When a group walks in sync, it wastes less energy. It conserves breath. It communicates unity without a single word spoken. This connection rhythm guiding movement became one of the most important evolutionary advantages our species ever developed. When early humans hunted, they moved in coordinated bursts. When they built shelters, they struck tools against wood and stone with rhythmic precision. When they carried resources together, they lifted and lowered in patterns. Movement itself created the structure of early human survival. Each action, a small piece of natural percussion. And then came something even more remarkable: rhythmic entrainment. The instinctive tendency of humans to fall into the same tempo as those around them. If you've ever walked beside someone and noticed your steps sinking, you've experienced it. If you've ever tapped your fingers because someone near you was tapping theirs, you felt it. If you've ever been in a crowd that began clapping together, you've been part of it. Entrainment is a built-in biological coordination system. It allows humans to align their internal rhythms, breathing, heart rate, movement with the people around them. This made early cooperation easier. It made communication smoother. It made unity possible. No wonder ancient cultures around the world developed drumming as one of the first cultural technologies. Drums do not just make sound. They create shared timing, shared intention, shared emotion. In a world where communication was still young, rhythm gave groups a way to synchronize their bodies and minds. A drum beat allowed dozens of people to coordinate movements they could not yet describe with language. It let them prepare for hunts, rituals, and migrations with precision. Even today, you can feel rhythm's influence on the body. A slow beat steadies the breath. A rapid beat quickens the pulse. A shifting beat sparks anticipation. The body responds before the mind interprets. Think of a heartbeat rising when listening to an intense drum pattern. Think of the instinct to sway when a slow, deep rhythm fills a room. Think of the sudden urge to dance when a lively tempo begins. These reactions are not cultural. They are biological. They are remnants of a world where rhythm was a matter of survival. Dance, too, began long before it was art. It began as synchronization, as a way to rehearse strength, coordination, and group unity. Movement shaped rhythm, and rhythm shaped movement, creating a feedback loop that helped define what it meant to be human. And somewhere in this evolving connection between body and beat, a new layer began to emerge. Emotion. The body not only moved with rhythm, it felt with it. A slow rhythm could ease tension in the muscles. A strong rhythm could awaken energy. A broken rhythm could create anxiety or anticipation. The body knew what the mind had yet to articulate. Gradually, rhythm became a language of its own. A language spoken not through words, but through movement, breath, and feeling. A language that carried emotion before emotion had a name. And as rhythm shaped the body and movement shaped survival, another force emerged, a force capable of shaping the emotional world. Melody. A thread of sound that could carry longing, joy, sorrow, or wonder from one human to another. With rhythm guiding the heartbeat and the body, melody began to guide the heart itself. And so, the story flows onward from the pulse of movement into the emotional architecture of sound, where music becomes not just something we move with, but something we feel deeply within. Melody and emotion. The rhythm of movement fades gently into the background now, like footsteps slowing at the edge of a clearing. And in the space left behind, something delicate begins to rise, a thread of sound, softer than rhythm, more fluid than pulse. Where rhythm organized the body, melody began to organize the heart. If rhythm is the heartbeat of music, melody is its voice, its emotional signature, its ability to make us feel without needing to understand. Melody emerged when early humans discovered that sound could travel not only across distance, but across emotion. A rising pitch carried hope. A falling pitch carried sorrow. A trembling tone carried fear. A soft, lingering note carried comfort. These emotional contours were understood instinctively, long before culture shaped them into scales or songs. Imagine an early human calling out across a valley, not with words, with feeling. A long rising cry to express longing. A descending sigh to communicate safety. A soft wavering tone to soothe a child. These were melodies in their earliest form, emotional shapes carried through vibration. Each contour meaning something different. Each pitch expressing what language had not yet evolved to say. As the human mind grew more intricate, so did the emotional life it carried. The brain needed a way to express subtlety, the yearning between joy and sorrow, the wonder between fear and awe, the tenderness that lived in moments too small for words. Melody became the vessel for those nuances. Unlike rhythm, which speaks through the body, melody speaks directly to the emotional centers of the brain. It bypasses logic. It bypasses language. It reaches into the limbic system, stirring reactions that feel both ancient and immediate. A single melody can evoke landscapes, memories, sensations. It can feel like watching dawn rise inside the mind. It can feel like standing at the edge of something familiar and mysterious at once. Why does melody affect us so deeply? Because emotion itself is melodic. When you are sad, your voice falls in pitch. When excited, it rises. When afraid, it tightens. When calm, it flows in smooth contours. The brain learned to interpret these patterns long before it learned to interpret words. So when you hear a melody that rises gently, the brain reads it as hope, aspiration, possibility. When you hear a melody that falls slowly, the brain reads it as reflection, closure, tenderness. Certain intervals, the distance between notes, carry emotional weight encoded by centuries of human experience. The minor third, found in lullabies around the world, evokes closeness and comfort. The perfect fifth carries strength and spaciousness. The minor second expresses tension, fragility, and longing. The major sixth feels warm, open, nostalgic. Harmony shapes mood. Contour shapes meaning. Tension and resolution shape emotional movement. Cultures across the world developed different scales, yet all humans respond to melody's emotional shape, even when unfamiliar. A child in one culture can often sense the mood of a melody from another culture without explanation. Emotion in sound is universal. It speaks in a language older than civilization. Think of how a single instrument can change an entire scene. A violin whispering through the dark can carry solitude. A flute rising above silence can carry wonder. A deep cello note can anchor a moment in gravity or sorrow. A soft humming voice can feel like being held. These responses are not random. They are the result of thousands of generations shaping the mind to recognize meaning in sound. And melody is not just about the notes themselves. It is about how they move, the pauses between them, the breath-like rise and fall, the emotional arc they trace inside the listener. When melody emerged alongside rhythm, music transformed from coordination into expression, from movement into feeling, from survival into identity. And this emotional power led to another discovery, that music could carry not just feelings, but memories. That a single melody could bind a moment in time so deeply that decades later it could be unlocked in an instant. Memory and music fused. Melody became a vessel for the past, for emotion, for identity itself. And so, the story flows onward from the emotional landscape carved by melody into the realm of memory, where music becomes a map of our lives, a keeper of time, and a bridge between who we were and who we are. Music and memory. Melody drifts gently into silence, leaving behind an emotional afterglow, and in that soft space, another dimension opens, one where sound becomes time, and time becomes part of who we are. If rhythm shapes the body and melody shapes emotion, memory is where music shapes identity. From the moment early humans first hummed to soothe a child or tapped a rhythm to coordinate a hunt, sound began to attach itself to experience. Music became a way to mark moments, to make them last, to weave them into the fabric of the mind. And over thousands of generations, the brain learned something extraordinary, that musical patterns could anchor memories more deeply than words alone. The hippocampus, the brain's memory gateway, responds powerfully to music. When a melody repeats, when a rhythm returns, when a harmony resolves, the hippocampus strengthens its connections, binding the sound to the emotional and sensory world surrounding it. That binding is why a single song can transport you instantly to another time in your life. The smell of a room, the feeling of a season, the presence of someone you once knew. Music is not just a backdrop to memory, it is one of its architects. Even now, think of the songs tied to the milestones of your life. A melody that reminds you of childhood. A rhythm that recalls a journey. A song that marks a relationship, a loss, a celebration. Music becomes a kind of emotional timestamp, holding pieces of our lives in patterns the brain can replay with perfect clarity. But this goes deeper than nostalgia. Music activates networks involved in emotional tagging, the process by which the brain decides what to keep. Events linked to strong emotion are more likely to be remembered. And music, carrying emotion within its very structure, becomes a powerful catalyst. It enhances what it touches. A simple moment becomes significant when paired with sound. This is why cultures across the world use music in ritual. To remember ancestors, to pass down stories, to preserve identity across generations. A chant, a drum pattern, a melody. These become vessels capable of carrying collective memory long after individuals have passed. Long before writing existed, music was the archive of humanity. Wisdom encoded in repetition. History carried in harmony. Tradition passed through tone. And the brain, already shaped by thousands of years of rhythmic movement and melodic expression, became exquisitely sensitive to these patterns. Music could spark recall even when other pathways were lost. This is why a person living with Alzheimer's can forget names, faces, or places, yet still sing an old song word for word. Music bypasses damaged circuits. It reaches the memory networks through alternate routes. It awakens identity in a way no other stimulus can. For those moments, music becomes not just memory, but restoration, a returning of self. There is a reason lullabies are remembered into adulthood, even when the words fade. A reason national anthems stir emotion, even in people who rarely think about their origins. A reason a simple melody can make the eyes soften, the heart lift, or the breath catch suddenly in the chest. Music holds the past with a tenderness nothing else can match. It preserves our stories, our joys, our griefs, our transformations. Each melody becomes a bridge across time, linking who we were to who we are and who we may become. As humans evolved, sound became not only a vessel for personal memory, but a vessel for cultural identity. Different societies, shaped by their environments, began to craft their own musical worlds. Rhythms born from desert sands, melodies rising from river valleys, chants carried across mountain ranges, flutes carved in forests and plains. The next chapter of this journey unfolds naturally from here into the vast landscape of human culture, where music becomes a shared language, a collective heartbeat, and a story carved into sound. Cultural music. Memory settles like a gentle echo, and from that echo rises a new horizon, the world of human culture. Where memory preserves individual experience, culture preserves collective experience. And music, shaped by evolution and emotion, became one of the earliest and most powerful tools humans used to weave meaning into community. As people spread across continents, the landscapes they lived in began to shape the soundscapes they created. The desert shaped rhythm differently than the forest. The mountains shaped melody differently than the plains. Water, wind, climate, wildlife, all became musical teachers. In Africa, the cradle of humanity, percussion blossomed first. Hollowed logs became drums. Gourds became shakers. Rock surfaces became resonant instruments. Communities used rhythm to synchronize labor, call to one another, and perform rituals that bound the group together. Drumming was not entertainment. It was communication. It was ceremony. It was the heartbeat of early society. Across vast grasslands, distant calls evolved into songs that carried over long distances. Communities used melody to signal identity, to announce presence, to gather at night around the fire. Music became a symbol of who belonged and who was part of the circle. In ancient river civilizations, Egypt, Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley flutes made of bone and reed emerged. Their airy tones mirrored wind over water, birdsong at dawn, and the serenity of flowing rivers. People began shaping melodies as expressions of spirituality, reverence, and myth. Music became a bridge between humanity and the gods. In the mountains of East Asia, the pentatonic scale took root, a sound that echoed the openness and clarity of wide horizons. Strings vibrated like the wind, like flowing calligraphy written in the air. Music became meditation, balance, inner stillness. In the frozen north, Inuit throat singing emerged, a duet between breath and body, rhythm and pulse, survival and storytelling. Music became resilience against the elements, a shared warmth in the cold. In Oceania, chants and drums pulsed with the rhythm of the waves. Communities used sound to navigate the open ocean, to mark rituals of birth, death, harvest, and voyage. Music became the wayfinding of spirit and culture. Across the indigenous Americas, flutes, drums, and rattles blended with stories of ancestors and spirits. Music was medicine. Music was prayer. Music was the memory of entire lineages. Everywhere humans lived, sound became a reflection of the environment, a sonic mirror of the world outside and the world within. And as groups grew larger, rituals grew more complex. Gatherings began with rhythm to bring hearts into sync, then melody to guide emotion, then harmony to bind voices together. These layers created something profound: shared musical identity. People sang together long before they spoke in formal language. Communal singing synchronized breath. Synchronized breath synchronized emotion. Synchronized emotion created unity. Music became a form of social technology. It unified tribes. It strengthened alliances. It marked leaders. It preserved myths. It healed wounds. It celebrated life's cycles. It became a cornerstone of culture. Even today, you can feel those ancient roots. When a stadium sings together, when a congregation chants in unison, when a lullaby quiets a child, when a festival drumbeat pulls strangers into rhythm, when national songs stir collective emotion. These moments are not accidents. They are echoes of thousands of generations, shaping and being shaped by sound. As music expanded across the globe, it took on new roles: teaching, healing, guiding. It began to soothe grief, regulate emotion, and help people navigate the inner landscape of the mind. Long before psychology existed, long before medicine was formalized, humans discovered that music could restore balance. The next chapter flows from this naturally, like exhaling after a long shared song, into the realm where music becomes therapy, medicine, and emotional sanctuary. Music as healing. The echoes of cultural song fade gently, like the last notes of a drum carried off by evening wind. And in the quiet that follows, another truth emerges, one as old as humanity itself. Music was never only expression or communication, it was also healing, a balm for the nervous system, a bridge back to emotional balance, a way for the mind to find itself again. From the earliest rituals to the most intimate lullabies, humans turned to sound for comfort long before written remedies existed. A slow, steady rhythm could calm a frightened child. A soft melody could ease communal grief. A chant could help a community enter a meditative trance, steadying their breath and lowering their stress. Music became medicine, not because people believed it was, but because the body responded as if it were. Imagine, thousands of years ago, a small community gathered in a circle. Someone begins a slow, repetitive drum beat, steady, predictable, grounding. The rhythm aligns their breathing. It steadies their pulse. It creates unity in a moment of fear or uncertainty. The sound wraps around them like warmth. That was therapy, long before we had the word for it. At its core, healing begins with regulation, with helping the nervous system return to a stable, safe state. Music does this naturally. Predictable rhythm calms the amygdala. Gentle melody lowers stress hormones. Repetition quiets the default mode network, the part of the brain that spirals into worry. Harmony softens the tension held in muscles and breath. Modern neuroscience confirms what ancient humans already knew. Certain musical patterns slow the heart rate. Others enhance connection and trust by increasing oxytocin. Some stimulate dopamine release, lifting mood and easing heaviness. Even simple humming activates the vagus nerve, guiding the body into a parasympathetic restorative state. No wonder traditions across the world used song and rhythm in rituals of healing and transformation. Shamans drummed to guide altered states of awareness. Monks chanted to cultivate stillness and compassion. Healers sang over the sick to soothe their fear. Communities mourned together with long, aching melodies that helped release grief. Music allowed the body to feel what words could not express. It allowed sorrow to move. It allowed pain to soften. It allowed hope to rise. Even today, music therapy is used to reduce anxiety, support trauma recovery, improve emotional regulation, and stimulate damaged neural pathways after injury or stroke. People who struggle to speak due to neurological conditions can sometimes sing their words clearly because melody uses different neural roots than language. In deep emotional pain, music offers something rare. A safe space to feel without being overwhelmed. A structure to hold the emotion. A rhythm to guide the release. A sound to carry what cannot be spoken. When someone listens to a sad song during heartbreak, it may seem counterintuitive, but the music validates the emotion, allowing the body to process it. When someone listens to uplifting, expansive melodies, their nervous system widens, breath deepens, and the mind regains its sense of possibility. Music is not simply mood-altering. It is emotionally integrating. Across generations, cultures instinctively understood this. They sang during birth, during illness, during famine, during planting and harvest, during the beginning of life and the end of it. Music accompanied every transition, every threshold, every shift in the human condition. To heal is to return to rhythm, to return to breath, to return to connection with self and others. And music, woven into both biology and culture, became one of the most reliable tools humans ever discovered for that return. As we follow the thread of healing, the story naturally expands outward again, because music does not heal individuals alone. It heals communities. It binds people together, reshaping the social fabric of human life. And when people sing together, something extraordinary happens. Their hearts begin to beat in sync. Their breathing aligns. Their emotional rhythms merge. This phenomenon leads us quietly, seamlessly, into the next chapter of our journey, where music becomes the architecture of belonging, the social glue of early humanity, and one of the most powerful forces reshaping the human mind, the social mind. From the quiet, healing pulse of music, the story expands outward again from the inner nervous system to the collective heartbeat of human groups. Healing, after all, is not only an individual experience. It is a shared one. And music, more than almost anything else, has always drawn humans toward one another. As the echoes of ancient songs fade, they open a doorway into one of the most extraordinary roles sound has ever played, shaping the social mind. When early humans gathered around a fire, their voices intertwined. When communities worked together, their rhythms aligned. When groups celebrated, mourned, hunted, or prayed, music bound them into one organism. Dozens of bodies, dozens of breaths, dozens of beating hearts guided by a single pulse. This synchrony is not symbolic, it is biological. When people sing together, their heart rates synchronize. When they chant together, their breathing falls into the same rhythm. When they move to a shared beat, their bodies produce the same hormonal signals, lowering anxiety, increasing trust, deepening affiliation. Music became an ancient social technology long before we developed cities or governments. It created unity in a world where unity was survival. It dissolved interpersonal barriers. It allowed strangers to become community. Imagine an early tribe gathered for a ritual. The drums begin slowly. A steady, grounding pulse. Voices join, rising in long, open intervals. The sound fills the night. And in that moment, dozens of nervous systems merge into a shared emotional state. That was more than music. It was collective regulation, collective identity, collective belonging. Anthropologists believe music may have been one of the first forms of social bonding, powerful enough to hold large groups together. Before shared language, before shared laws, before shared symbols, there was shared sound. Rhythm synchronized bodies. Melody synchronized emotions. Harmony synchronized minds. In this way, music helped early humans overcome one of the greatest evolutionary challenges. How do you maintain trust and unity in groups larger than a single family? Other species rely on touch, grooming, or close physical proximity to build social cohesion. But humans needed something that could bond large groups at once, across distance and circumstance. Music became that bond. It allowed dozens, even hundreds of individuals to feel aligned, connected, uplifted, and emotionally unified. Group singing increased oxytocin, the hormone of trust and social connection. Group drumming created shared anticipation and movement. Group chanting brought people into the same inner state. Music carried identity through generations. Who we are, where we come from, what we believe, what we have endured. Throughout history, communities have used sound to mark their belonging. Tribal songs, ritual chants, epics sung by memory, lullabies passed down like heirlooms. Even the national anthems of today echo this ancient instinct, the need for sound to bind people into a shared emotional story. Music creates a kind of emotional architecture within a group. It builds rooms of trust, hallways of shared memory, open spaces of collective meaning. When people sing together, their differences soften, their nervous systems align, Their minds enter a shared rhythm where cooperation becomes easier and conflict becomes less threatening. This is why festivals, religious ceremonies, marches, weddings, and even sports events all rely on music. Sound carries the weight of belonging more directly than any symbol or language. It allows people to feel part of something larger than themselves. But beneath the cultural structures, beneath the rituals and songs, lies something profoundly personal, the spark of individual expression. Music not only helps us belong, it helps us reveal who we are. And so the story moves inward once more smoothly, gently toward the creative mind, where sound becomes a canvas for imagination, artistry, and the inner life of the individual. Creativity and expression. The shared heartbeat of community gradually softens, making space for a quieter, more intimate dimension of the story. If music unites groups, it also unlocks the inner landscapes of individuals. The same rhythms that synchronize crowds also awaken something uniquely personal inside each human being, the impulse to create, to express, to turn emotion into sound. From the glow of collective unity, we step gently into the realm of creativity, where music becomes a mirror of the inner world. Long before humans carved symbols into stone or painted stories on cave walls, they shaped sound. They discovered that rhythm could be altered, that melody could wander, that the voice could bend and stretch in endless directions. Music became a playground for imagination, a space where emotion could take form even before emotion had names. Picture the first human who dared to improvise. Perhaps they tapped a new pattern on a log while others listened. Perhaps they let their voice rise unexpectedly, creating a shape no one had heard before. Perhaps they plucked a stretched sinew and felt wonder ripple through their chest. That moment was more than creativity. It was identity emerging from sound. Expression through music became a way to explore what it meant to be human. Not just surviving, but feeling. Not just communicating, but imagining. Not just belonging, but becoming. The neuroscience of creativity shows that music engages both hemispheres of the brain, weaving together logic and spontaneity, memory and imagination, structure and freedom. The prefrontal cortex loosens its grip. The brain's self-monitoring quiets. The default mode network awakens, allowing ideas to flow. The motor regions spark with possibility, guiding hands, breath, or body into action. This shift, this opening is what musicians call flow, a state where sound seems to move through them rather than from them. Time softens. Awareness expands. The boundaries between self and expression fade. Creativity becomes presence. Even those who do not consider themselves artists know this feeling. Humming absent-mindedly, tapping a rhythm on a desk, singing softly in the car. These moments are small expressions of an ancient instinct, the instinct to shape emotion into vibration. Across cultures, music grew into an art form that allowed individuals to tell their story. A lone flute calling across a desert valley. Not a singer expressing longing for distant lands. A drummer weaving personal emotion into communal rhythm. A songwriter capturing pain or joy in a melody that resonates with thousands. Music allows us to speak the parts of ourselves that words cannot quite reach. It allows sorrow to be exhaled. It allows joy to overflow. It allows confusion, awe, nostalgia, hope, and yearning to find shape. Creativity is not merely the production of art. It is the translation of inner life into sound. It is a neurological act of transformation, turning feeling into form. This is why a simple song can feel like truth. Why a melody can make the eyes fill with tears. Why a rhythm can awaken something that has been dormant for years. As musical creativity evolved, humans began building tools to expand their expressive possibilities. Hollowed gourds became rattles. Stretched skins became drums. Carved bones became flutes. Gut and fiber became strings. Wood and reed became instruments capable of carrying human emotion farther and deeper than the voice alone. And with each innovation, music became increasingly sophisticated, not only personally expressive, but culturally transformative, leading societies into new sonic frontiers. This natural progression leads us seamlessly into the next chapter, where creativity merges with invention and sound becomes shaped by tools, technology, and human ingenuity. From the first bone flute to modern digital synthesis, music has evolved alongside our tools, expanding the mind's expressive horizon. Technology and sound. From the intimate spark of creativity, the story widens again, naturally, as if following the arc of human curiosity itself. When imagination found its voice, humans began shaping tools that could carry sound farther, deeper, and more powerfully than the body alone. Creativity led to invention. Emotion led to engineering. And music, so deeply woven into the human mind, evolved hand in hand with technology. The first musical technologies were simple, born from the landscapes around early communities. A hollow log struck with a branch produced a deeper, more resonant tone than hands alone. A reed blown across its opening created a whistle, like wind over grass. A stretched animal hide tightened across a frame produced a rhythmic pulse that echoed across distance. A bone with carefully carved holes became a flute capable of singing like a bird. These discoveries were not accidental. They were guided by curiosity, by the human desire to understand and expand sound. Each instrument became an extension of the body, allowing music to reach new emotional and physical terrains. In ancient Mesopotamia, lyres and harps emerged, their strings resonating with mathematical precision. In Egypt, priests used flutes and sistrums to communicate with the divine. In Greece, philosophers studied scales and harmonics, searching for the laws that governed musical pleasure. In India, the sitar and tabla evolved into instruments capable of expressing vast emotional landscapes through microtones and rhythm cycles. In China, the guqin became a symbol of wisdom and introspection, used by scholars to contemplate existence. Every culture built instruments suited to its own environment and worldview, expanding the possibilities of human expression. As tools improved, so did the ability to preserve music across generations. Clay tablets recorded early notation. Monks developed structured musical language in illuminated manuscripts. Traveling musicians carried songs across continents, blending traditions and inspiring new forms. Music became not just expression, but architecture, a craft that could be refined, studied, and expanded. Then came one of the most revolutionary technologies of all, writing. For the first time, melody could be captured, frozen in time, shared beyond memory. The mind's inner sound was no longer fleeting. It could be documented, replayed, transformed. Over centuries, musical structure matured harmony. Scales, modes, counterpoint, orchestration turning sound into an art both emotional and mathematical. Cathedrals filled with voices rising in perfect resonance. Courts echoed with string quartets. Entire orchestras emerged, capable of expressing everything from soft introspection to sweeping existential awe. But the most dramatic transformation began in the last 2 centuries. The Industrial Revolution expanded instrument design. The piano grew stronger, brighter, more versatile. Brass instruments evolved with valves that allowed new melodic precision. Guitars became louder, more expressive, more central to culture. Then came electricity, and with it, the birth of modern sound. Microphones captured the voice. Speakers projected it. Vinyl preserved recordings. Radio carried music across borders. Tape allowed editing and layering. Synthesizers created sounds that had never existed in nature. Digital technology opened infinite sonic landscapes. Suddenly, anyone could create entire worlds of sound from a single room. Music became global. Genres blossomed. Traditions blended. The boundaries between cultures softened as rhythms and melodies migrated through airwaves and screens. And now, technology has taken us even further. AI can compose. Computers can mimic instruments or invent new ones. Musicians can collaborate across continents in real time. Brain imaging can show how sound moves through neural pathways. Wearable devices can generate music that responds to heart rate or emotional state. Even neural interfaces are emerging, allowing people to create music with their thoughts alone. Technology has not distanced us from the emotional core of music. If anything, it has widened the space for human expression. It has given us new tools to explore the relationship between sound and consciousness. And in that widening space, in the increasing intimacy between music and mind, new questions begin to shimmer. Questions that are not scientific alone. Questions that are philosophical. What is music, truly, beyond vibration? Why does sound become meaning? Why does emotion take shape in the invisible movements of air? What does music reveal about the nature of consciousness itself? These questions arise naturally from the evolution of sound, guiding us gently toward the next chapter, a chapter that peers into the depths of human existence, where music becomes more than art or biology. It becomes a window into the structure of being, the philosophy of music. As technology expands the outer edges of sound, another horizon comes into view, a quieter, deeper one. Innovation and invention naturally lead us inward again, into the realm of meaning. After all the tools we have built, after all the melodies we have shaped, after all the rhythms we have danced to for thousands of generations, a question lingers beneath it all. What is music, truly? Not how it's made, not how it's played, but what it means. The story shifts gently now, from the physical to the metaphysical, as if stepping from a bustling marketplace into a silent hall filled with echoes of ancient thought. Music has always invited reflection. It whispers questions about humanity, consciousness, emotion, time, and existence itself. At its core, music is vibration. Waves moving through air, patterns of pressure, invisible motion. But when those vibrations reach the mind, they become something else entirely. They become feeling. They become memory. They become imagination. They become truth. This transformation, vibration, becoming emotion, is one of the greatest mysteries in all of human experience. Why should sound make us cry? Why should harmony feel like resolution? Why should a simple melody evoke a sense of infinity or longing or spiritual connection? Some philosophers believed music was a reflection of the cosmos. Pythagoras imagined the universe as a great instrument, its planets and stars vibrating in celestial harmony, a music of the spheres. To him, sound revealed the mathematical structure of reality itself. Others believed music was the language of the soul. Plato wrote that musical modes shaped character, guiding emotion toward virtue or chaos. In India, ancient sages saw sound, nada, as the essence of creation, the vibration from which the universe unfolds. In China, Confucius taught that music aligned the heart with harmony and balance, shaping society through inner order. Across cultures, one idea appears again and again. Music revealed something real about the world or about us that cannot be spoken in ordinary language. When you listen to a melody that rises with tender hope or falls with a gentle sorrow, it is not merely sound. It is a shape of emotion, a geometry of feeling, a map of the inner world drawn with vibration instead of ink. Music gives form to the invisible. It allows us to experience time differently, stretched, suspended, folded back on itself. It lets us feel emotions we have no words for. It lets us touch memories we thought were lost. It pulls us into presence, into awareness, into a deeper relationship with ourselves and with existence. But perhaps the greatest philosophical question is this: why does music feel inherently meaningful? Mind is not a passive receiver of sound. It organizes, interprets, predicts, feels, assigns importance, shapes the vibration into something deeply personal. Music may be one of the purest reflections of consciousness because it mirrors how the mind itself works through patterns, rhythms, anticipation, and emotional resonance. A melody is like a thought unfolding. A harmony is like two emotions interacting. A rhythm is like the heartbeat of awareness. Silence is the space between moments. Music is consciousness expressed as sound. And yet, it is universal. A melody composed on one continent can move someone on another. A rhythm from one culture can resonate in a completely different one. Music crosses boundaries that language cannot. It dissolves separation. It speaks to something shared beneath all differences, the human experience of being alive. For this reason, music is often described not only as art or communication, but as a bridge between inner and outer worlds, between emotion and expression, between self and other, between the physical and the transcendent. And as we contemplate these deeper meanings, the story naturally turns toward what lies ahead. Because music is still evolving. Human consciousness is still evolving. Technology continues to move forward, opening new frontiers of sound we could not have imagined even a generation ago. The next chapter looks toward that horizon, into a future where the relationship between music and the mind becomes even more intimate, more integrated, more transformative. The future of music. The philosophical echoes settle gently, like the final resonance of a struck bell fading into stillness. And in that quiet space, the story turns, almost inevitably, towards what comes next. After traveling through evolution, emotion, neuroscience, culture, expression, and meaning, we arrive at the threshold of possibility, a future shaped by the ever-deepening connection between music and the human mind. For as ancient as music is, its journey is far from complete. In fact, some of its most profound transformations may still lie ahead. Imagine humanity standing at a crossroads of biology and technology. On one side, our oldest instincts, rhythm, vibration, emotion, breath. On the other, our newest inventions, algorithms, digital soundscapes, neural interfaces, artificial intelligence. And between them flows music, evolving in ways that mirror both our primal origins and our future potentials. We live in a time when anyone can create music from a single device, where a song composed in a small room can reach millions across the globe overnight, where genres blend effortlessly electronic with classical, folk with ambient, traditional with futuristic, where borders dissolve not only through travel, but through sound. AI has become a new instrument, capable of analyzing centuries of music, identifying patterns, and generating entirely new compositions. Some see this as a challenge to human creativity, but in truth, it is more like a collaboration, a new palette of colors the mind can paint with. Artificial intelligence can reveal structures in music we never noticed. It can help composers explore harmonies that stretch beyond tradition. It can create soundscapes designed to regulate mood, focus, or emotional healing. It can help people with limited physical mobility express the music they imagine. Technology is not replacing the human spirit in music. It is expanding it. Just as the drum expanded rhythm, the flute expanded melody, and the piano expanded harmony, AI expands possibility. Yet even as our tools grow more advanced, the essence of music remains unchanged. It is still vibration meeting emotion, still breath meeting rhythm, still consciousness meeting sound. And now new frontiers are opening, frontiers that merge music with the body and mind in unprecedented ways. Wearable devices can create soundscapes that respond to heart rate, breathing, or emotional state in real time. Imagine calming music that deepens as your breath slows, or energizing rhythms that rise when your focus increases. Imagine music that truly listens to you. Neural interfaces still in their infancy allow people to compose using thought alone. The brain's electrical patterns become melodies. Imagined rhythms become real sound. For individuals who cannot move or speak, this technology offers a profound new form of expression, a direct doorway from mind to music. Therapeutic sound fields are also emerging, immersive rooms or headphones that deliver frequencies tailored to specific emotional or neurological states. These are not merely playlists, but precision-crafted sound environments designed to help with anxiety, trauma processing, creative focus, or deep rest. As science advances, we may learn even more about how music shapes the brain, how certain harmonies can strengthen neural connectivity, how rhythm can stabilize attention, how melody can support emotional integration, how personalized soundscapes can encourage neuroplasticity and healing. And above all, the global culture of music continues to evolve. New genres will emerge. Old traditions will be rediscovered. Voices from every corner of the world will blend, collide, and co-create. Music will become not only a shared language across cultures, but a shared language across generations, technologies, and even species. There may come a time when humans use sound to communicate directly with artificial intelligence. A time when music helps us explore the psychology of consciousness itself. A time when the boundary between listener and creator blurs completely. And yet, through all of this, one thing remains constant, the core truth that has shaped our entire journey. Music is a reflection of what it means to be human. No matter how far technology evolves, the emotional instinct at the heart of music will remain untouched. The need to connect, to express, to remember, to heal, to wonder, to belong, to feel the pulse of life moving through sound. And as this future horizon expands, the story gently circles back to where it began, to the timeless rhythm, the first heartbeat, the ancient pulse that carried humanity into existence. From this emerging world of possibilities, our story now returns to Earth, grounding itself in the quiet wisdom that has always lived beneath music's evolution. We come to the final reflections, a closing chapter that honors the journey, settles the breath, and brings the entire arc of music and mind into a single, steady resonance.